What is your promise? Why are you in business? How do you expect to grow?
This is The Hook, a show focused on branding, marketing, and business development.
You brand to inspire, not to sell.
Jason Arcemont, the marketing maverick, gives expertise to business owners, serial entrepreneurs, and anyone interested in building a stronger company brand.
Creating a brand is like telling a story. You've got one shot to say it all.
When your marketing works, you've got them on the hook.
America! We're back once again after our big 4th of July show. This is our annual huge weekend after 4th of July show.
We're starting it right now. This is...
Yeah.
What's so big? What are we doing? I don't understand.
It's okay. It's okay. I do this every once in a while.
We got to think of something on the fly. Got it. Okay. It's coming at the end. The end of the show. We have a big surprise.
Do we?
No.
Okay.
Just another great show.
I say annual. This is the first time we've been here the weekend after 4th of July since the show didn't start until what? October of last year. This is The Hook. That's Jason Arcemont, the marketing maverick. And yeah, we do this part-time basis, not full-time, as you can tell.
Skill.
We do other stuff
There's still a level of skill here, part-time or not, man. We are giving back, helping to educate you guys and give you tips and ways to just do business better.
Okay.
We want to help you grow your business.
Then what would you say our show is about?
Our business is about helping marketing managers, business owners, entrepreneurs look at their business differently and find unique ways to help grow, improve their processes, their revenue, their margins, whatever it might be.
This is being brought to you by Brightbox Brand Marketing. That's where we work, and that's what we talk about a lot of times, is what we do at work on a day-to-day basis for our clients.
Yeah, it relates back to what the show's all about. I mean, Brightbox is a full-service brand marketing firm, and that's where day-to-day Josh and I are helping clients, develop their marketing strategies, execute those strategies through web development, video production, public relations, social media, you name it. And so, we get a lot of experience working with dozens of clients every week. I also do a lot of business consulting and have started several businesses of my own, and that flows right over into this show.
Kind of, we talked about it last week, kind of what Daniel was here for, Onto Box.
Yeah, our corporate training company. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Daniel is a partner in that company with me. He also owns another business called Redshift Riders and was on last week talking about, what was he talking about? No, he's talking about content.
The thing is that
he is Mr. Content.
If you don't know what he was talking about, you can always catch a show at thehookradio.com. All of the shows are located there. Or if you want to reach out to any of our individual companies, they're available on that website too. And this week we got a great guest.
We do. We've got Ryan Buck with Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialist.
That's right.
He'll be here in studio with us. They do a really good job of kind of setting the standard in their space, and that's why I wanted to bring Ryan in. He can share some of his tips and visions for how he's done this. They have multiple different locations with multiple different brands, and I just find it fascinating how he's been able to kind of pull all that together and make a powerful brand, a powerful market offer that I think for the most part, from what we've done, research is kind of unmatched in a lot of spaces. So really impressive organization.
If you have an animal, then that animal is going to be part of your family. And if you've ever gone to Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialist, you know that they take pride in caring for your animal in the best way possible. And they have the best board-certified doctors in the business.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely top-notch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, unbelievable team. And, aside from the care, I know they do great stuff. I've taken my animals there in the past, and they do just amazing service. Amazing, the skill set that they've got over there is just great. But they also just approach marketing and business differently. They don't go to market like all the competition. They always look for a unique way to put a spin on it. And I see so many times, we talk to clients every day that are talking about marketing, and they're like, well, this is how everybody does it. We want to do it just like this, except maybe a little bit more professional or maybe a little bit more polished. And I'm always like, man, why don't we do it completely different and really stand out? See, I think there's this kind of misconception. People think that if they market like everyone else, maybe they could have the entire market share. And that's just kind of crazy. I mean, most businesses, especially small ones, if you guys are listening to the show, are the idea that you're going to be able to capture 100% of your market, meaning you're going to get all of the possible business out there that you can, that is even available, is just unrealistic. More than likely, you're going to get a small fraction of the market, in which case you are basically marketing to a niche, right? And if you're marketing to a niche, then, there's certain things that you should do to focus on a niche and stand out and do things a little bit different and be unique in the way that you do your marketing and your visuals and your presentation and your communication that I think so many companies just don't do. It's like they always try to market to the mass. I know you see this all the time.
Do you feel like there's a strategy for that, though?
Yeah, I mean, you can. We do this whenever we go through the brand analysis. Our brand mapping process is a proprietary process that we go through, at Brightbox, and it starts off with just asking yourself, how much of the market do you realistically think you can own? And I would bet that for the majority of us that are listening to this, we'd be ecstatic if we had maybe 20, 30% of the overall market, whether that's within your state, within your county, within, your area. If you had less than 30%, then guess what? Under 30% of the market, you're in a niche. Whether you like it or not, you're in a very niche part of that market. So stop thinking of your market as a whole and really evaluate your current customers in the landscape that you're in. And I bet you'll find some common threads that are a little different than the kind of the popular customers, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have a natural tendency to have clients that gravitate towards you for your personality and your character and who you are as a person. And so you should really just exploit that and look at saying, okay, hey, I'm going to go after this, this 1% of the market and dominate and own and do great work and have better relationships and rapport with those clients than if I tried to go after, 100%, knowing that you couldn't get 100% of the market anyways. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Well, I mean, we have to go through, there's a kind of a real formula for it, but I just see so many companies just trying to go too broad.
I relate this to beer.
Oh, well, okay, so, a lot of things that we talk about circle back around to beer.
For me especially, yeah. So if you think about St. Arnold's, they've been around for 22 years now. But whenever they came out, there were a bunch of different craft breweries that were starting at that time. 22 years later, they were the only one that stuck around.
Right.
They did craft beer, and they did it really well. Were they going to take over Budweiser? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But they were that niche.
Yeah.
And they excelled at the product that they put out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would bet that at some point they probably did a customer profile. Said, okay, well, look, we're not going after the Budweiser guy. They sat down and said, we're going after a guy named Tim. This is what he does. He's interested in the process of beer and how to make it and everything that goes into it. And they said, okay, well, we're going to go after that guy. Even if he's 1 in 20 people, that's our audience. That's who we want to go after. And then they reviewed their messaging and everything they were doing and, aimed specifically, communication, all the efforts and tactics specifically at Tim rather than the whole market, the whole Budweiser market, right? And that's where it goes good. And that's when you stop wasting money on mass marketing or trade show opportunities and create your own niche segment communication platforms. And that's really where you get the highest ROI. Most of us cannot afford to spend the kind of money on mass marketing. If you're here in Houston, Gallery Furniture does a phenomenal job of marketing. I mean, he's everywhere. He spends a ton of money. If you are a small furniture store just starting out, do not try to compete with the marketing program of Gallery Furniture. It just does not make sense. Find something unique about yourself. Find something unique about your offering. Market to that specific niche. And I bet you'll find way less expensive ways to target that audience that you've defined rather than entire city of Houston.
Let me go back to this real quick. You said ROI. What does ROI stand for? Yeah. Because I hate whenever we go through terminology and maybe somebody doesn't understand what we're talking about. Yeah, that's a pretty common one, but I still like it.
It is a common one, but I do find that when we're talking about marketing, not a lot of firms use ROI when talking about marketing, and it should be. It's a return on investment. It's the same type of ROI that you would use in financials and accounting and all that kind of stuff. You should have an ROI for your marketing program because I tell you, if you come to us, come to any marketing firm and tell them, hey, I've got $300,000 a month for this huge marketing program. Well, guess what? They can definitely drive traffic, but can they drive enough traffic for you to return or to earn a profit on that $300,000? Meaning, if you spend $300 and you only bring in $300 in business, you've lost money due to overhead and cost and all that kind of stuff. So there's got to be an ROI, and the folks that are spending your money need to have a good understanding of what that ROI needs to be.
And that niche that's a huge determining factor.
Yeah,
who you're going to hit. Because I know that we have one of our clients, and they're going to be on in a few weeks. It's a window company. And so are they going to go after this segment where everybody's hitting that and they have the cheapest window? Or are you going to talk about the kind of windows or the kind of things that set you apart from them?
Right.
Of course, you're not going to... The window market, I mean, there's a ton of people playing. And they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you have
the
to
marketing
find,
for that's saturated. You're right.
You have to find a way to set yourself apart. You can't do what they're doing. They own that.
Yeah.
And they've done it so long now that you're not going to win in certain areas of pay-per-click.
Yeah.
Pay-per-click is part of
right.
Google, where
Right.
it's the AdWords and you work in SEO in there. So that's a whole different topic that we can get into at
We
some
can
other
do a whole
time.
business tip on that one time.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
But yeah, that's true. But I mean, usually when you see a company spending a lot of money on advertising, they're doing it for twofold. One, they're trying to get a lot of leads, but they're also trying to dominate their market and make it difficult for the competition to come up and market the way that they're doing it.
Yeah.
And so it does. It requires you to think a little bit more creative, man.
All right, let's take a break, and we're going to come back with the business tip. You're listening to The Hook.
There's a tangled mess of sheets on the bed. Like asleep, pounding in.
You're listening to The Hook, always online, thehookradio.com. All of our past guests, our shows where we gave some really, really good insight. And when I say we, I mean Jason did. That's Jason,
come on.
Jason Arcemont, the marketing maverick right there. This segment being brought to you by ontoboxtraining.com.
It's powerful training for professional people. OntoBox Training is our corporate training group. We do all types of training from culture development, sales training. We do workflow processes. We do brand analysis sometimes through that company. All types of things. If you're having operational inefficiencies or you're needing to bring up a department or a skill set within your organization, go to ontoboxtraining.com. Give us a shout out on there. Shoot us an email.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, we'd love to help you out.
If you want to email anything, you can do that at the website too.
Yeah.
If you have a question about business that you're about to start, or maybe the marketing that you have in place for your current business, please, we'd love to see your email. You do that at thehookradio.com. And it's time for our business tip.
Yeah, so, last segment we were talking about how to get more going, right, in your marketing program, whether you need to be niche or whether you need to market out to the masses. What kind of budget do you need for the type of audience? And one of the things that we use, or really the main tool that we use at Brightbox, is a proprietary brand mapping process that I developed, I think coming up on 7 or 8 years ago now. And this map came out of the desire to want to have a transparent way to kind of really explain to our clients what our ideas and our strategy were. And that, kind of gone were the days of, the agency going behind the magic curtain, right? And coming back out and saying, voila, here it, take it or leave it. This is your brand. This is your marketing.
You have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I really wanted to have a way that I could say, look, we have a systematic process for how we came up with the creative, with the messaging, and with the tactics that we're recommending so that the client could have more confidence and, put more money behind it to make it more successful and really know that, hey, this is strategy-driven creativity, not just a creative process on its own. We're a bunch of guys sitting around eating pizza, coming up with how to spend your money. It can't be that alone, right? That does happen. Josh is looking at me like, hey, we've done that before.
Well, not really that way, but most of the time it's fajitas.
Fajitas do it, man. They get the creative juices flowing. Yeah, I don't know what that is. All right, so we're talking about the brand map. You can go to this is a book that I've written as well on the brand map. You can check it out at Amazon. Hey, why don't we do? We're going to go through the brand map a little bit, break it down, but I'll tell you what, the first 3 folks that go to the website, thehookradio.com, send out the contact form there on the homepage, we'll give a free copy of the book away.
Nah, that sounds good.
Yeah, why not? So breaking down this brand map, what does this do? It makes everything clearer as far as how to execute your brand, what it should look like, the type of messaging you should use, and then the tactics. And what that starts with, and really what the map consists of, is 3 main components, 3 layers of what we call data. The outside ring we kind of consider to be the known data. Then we've got a layer of translation that goes into 2 main positioning statements. And then we have one last layer into the center, the last little section there, that's really all about the implementation. And that's where the visual components, the messaging, and the tactics come to life. And so if you kind of start with this first ring, and again, you guys go to the website anytime, ask additional questions about this, but I'm going to try to break it down here as quickly as I can. This first ring is what we consider to be known data. This is where you're collecting all the facts about what you already know. Interviewing the client or interviewing yourself to collect the internal perspective. How do we talk about our products? How do we talk about ourselves? How do we want to come across? What kind of culture do we want to have within our organization? collecting that data and then looking also at how do we want our clients to perceive us. Sometimes that's different, right? How we may operate internally is different than how we want to go to the market. How do we want clients to view us? How do they want to see our culture? And making sure that we understand what that relationship needs to look like. Is it a one-time quick sell transaction? Is it a lifelong process? Is it 2 or 3 months? I think defining that as much as you can and collecting as much of that data about yourself and how you want to be and how you want to be perceived is really important. The other half of that first step is doing the external market research. And that's looking at, the competitors. What kind of words are they using to describe what it is they do? What are their taglines? What do their websites look like? What do the campaigns that they're using look like? Do you see any similarities or patterns in something that everybody's doing, right? A lot of times when you go and you look at your market space, everybody's doing a lot of the same thing, right? So great, take note of that. Also look at the industry. A lot of times if you look within the industry and you see all the competition, you'll realize that there's these kind of bulked up categories of companies all doing the exact same thing. And then there's a couple people on the fringes out here that are trying to do something different, and maybe they could be successful, and you have to interpret that. Maybe they would be successful if they had more support or if they had more money or their branding was better. But you have to kind of look at the assessment and see where there's strengths and weaknesses or where there's opportunities, right? So collecting that data, that's something that if we're hired as a marketing firm to come in and do, we go through that exercise, that first step with you as a client. And so we do sometimes 2-3 of these a week, depending on the week with clients. They typically take 3-4 hours, and it's a pretty intensive series of questions to kind of unravel and pull all of this data out of the client's minds, right, and put it on this map. And that's where we kind of start the next layer. This is the very first layer of translation, where we're taking that data and we're translating into 2 kind of positioning statements. The first side of that second layer is translating all of the internal documents, all the internal data, right? Everything that you said about yourself has to translate down into one position that we use. It's something we call the 3 W's. These 3 W's have to be visually apparent on everything you do, from your brochure to your website, an ad, a billboard. And those 3 W's are who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
I've heard those many times. Many
times, yeah. And there's other W's. There's W's like why or when and all those kind of things. And those all have to do with execution, right? That gets down into, the W of why is the one I always get asked about. Well, that's really for marketing on the kind of more of the campaigns itself, the ad campaign itself. But from a brand perspective, just presenting your brand, you have to have those 3 W's of who you are, what you do, and who you do it for. So really challenge yourself to ask, does the marketing program or the communication program you have right now effectively convey those 3 W's?
Especially when you first go to your website. The first thing you see whenever you, and we call this above the fold, whenever you're looking at your website and it's just that the top of the screen for your website.
Before you start scrolling.
Yeah. Do you convey those 3 W's? It's as easy as that.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're missing an opportunity to gain some ROI on that project, right? Because if I don't know who you are, I don't know what you do, and I don't know who you do it for, am I even a prospective client? I'm already wasting my time on your site. I'm already wasting my time on your ad. And so really translating all that internal data that you collect up at the top down into your 3 W's is going to be key for kind of the ease of execution here on the final translation. And then the external stuff, to kind of speed it up a little bit here, you got to take all that external data and you've got to try to carve out and find your unique market segment. And I always use Starbucks, and I hate to pick on them, but look at what they did with a mediocre coffee. And this will probably be what I get most emails on is Starbucks is great. Yeah. But it really is. It's fine. It's a decent coffee, but for the fame and for the accreditation and for the size of company they've built, they took this and they created an empire by wrapping a brand around it because they knew nobody else was offering coffee with an experience like a coffee shop was back then. And so think of ways that you can create a segment or a differentiation from you and the rest of the competition in the industry. And then finally, that last layer of translation is taking your 3 W's, your unique market segment, and that's where you start aligning your messaging, right? Coming up with tagline ideas, campaign ideas that align properly and specifically with your 3 W's and your unique market segment. If you have a tagline and it does not speak to those 2 things, you're messing up. You're missing an opportunity to effectively tell your audience who you are, especially if this is an introduction campaign where maybe the audience doesn't know who you are. If you haven't been in business for 20 years and everybody knows your brand, you really got to stick to those 3 W's and your unique segment. And then visually, Josh was talking about your website above the fold. Visually, are you showing those 3 W's? Are you conveying the culture of your organization, of who you are, what you do, who you do it? Are you embodying what that means into every piece of literature and design thing that that your brand goes out on? And then finally, the tactics. If you know your segment and you know who your audience is, and maybe it is that niche audience that we were talking about last segment, then the tactics you use become extremely different for every different client. Sometimes, sure, it's social media, but what platforms, how often, what frequency, what types of things are we saying? All of those things become extremely important, or almost impossible to tell a client how to do it unless I know your 3 W's and I know your unique market segment. So hopefully that helps a little bit. That's a very brief explanation on it. You can always check the book out at Amazon. It's The Brand Map. And again, if you haven't done so yet, you can go to the website and fill out the contact form. I'll give a couple books away. You
just in probably 8 or 9 minutes explain something that takes us 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes to go through. I mean, I know a lot of that is us getting back information. But
because, it's tough. If you really think about the questions I just asked there, and if you've got a company or you're a marketing manager or a department manager, really sit down and try to answer those questions. And the 3 W's, people normally roll their eyes. But when you really stop and sit down and say, who are we? What is it that we do? It can't be 10 bullet points. What do you do? How do you say that in 2 or 3 words? And who do you do it for?
You got to break it down.
Yeah. So a lot of times it's a process, man, and we'll sit with clients for hours trying to scratch through it and whiteboard it out and go through different scenarios till we are able to smack a gavel on it and say, okay, this is how we're going to answer that question from now on.
And guess what? It works.
It has for years and years. Yeah, we've been, I've been fortunate enough to get the book written on it. We present on the map almost annually at University of Houston and Rice University. Some of the other schools around town have done it at Lone Star. It's been well received, and it's a very simple. It's not a big book, but it takes you right through the process to make sure that you have strategy-driven creativity, and it aligns well with your goal and who you are and where you're trying to go.
All right, I got to cut you off. We got a good guest coming up. Yeah, our guest coming in next, Ryan Buck from Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialist, right here on The Hook.
He pulled up in his red Corvette, salmon shorts and a white V-neck.
You're listening to The Hook, where we talk about business and marketing and, a ton of stuff. And we have the expert here, the marketing maverick. That's Jason Arcemont, and a great guest in studio with us today. Somebody I've known for a little while.
Yeah.
And in fact, I introduced you to him.
Yeah, it was a couple
years ago,
and we told you guys a little bit about Ryan in our first segment. He's at Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialist, and I was bragging on their ability to kind of come to market and define their market space. They're in 3 or 4 different markets, I think, right now around Texas, and so. Yeah, well, let's just stop rambling on. Let's just bring him on. He's here in studio with us. Ryan Buck, thanks so much for coming in, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason and Josh. Really appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So we're talking about GCVS. We'll go ahead and just do the acronym. Is that all right? You guys?
That's fine. GCVS is much simpler.
I think that's how most people. That's how I always heard of them, anyways. So maybe for those who are listening who don't know, give us a little background. What exactly is GCVS? What would they expect from them, or why would they go check them out?
Sure, absolutely. Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists, founded in 1988, one of the first referral only animal hospitals in the country. Now it's the largest veterinary hospital actually here in Texas. And we provide 14 different specialty services as well as emergency. So nights and weekends, you can come in there if you've got a problem with your pet and your family veterinarian is closed. You can come in on emergency, or you can come in on referral. And we have like I said, 14 different specialty services ranging from surgery, oncology, neurology, dermatology, dentistry, cardiology, just to name a few. Wow. And the hospital's huge. It's our main location is on the West Loop, 610 in Post Oak. About 225 employees, which includes about 50 veterinarians. And we also have a neurology-specific facility. We have MRI, CT, and 3 board-certified neurologists and neurosurgeons. They're over there on Wesley and 59 in a 6,000 square foot facility, which is only neurology and neurosurgery.
Man, you guys have taken over Houston for that. I mean, that's unbelievable. And for those of you that I don't think I said. So Ryan is the president of that company.
CEO, yes.
CEO. Okay, sorry. Oh, even a step. Good job. All right. Well, good. Yeah. So Ryan is responsible for all of that activity, but you guys also have 2 other locations, right?
Yes.
It's kind of sub brands, or how do you guys do that exactly?
Well, it was kind of opportunistic. So
Okay.
actually, I joined Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists in 2012.
Okay.
And one of the main reasons for that was some of the principal partners were looking to expand to San Antonio. And so it was kind of opportunistic in that there was a emergency hospital that was looking for a specialty group to partner with them, where they would provide the emergency services, the nights and weekend emergency services, and then the specialty group would provide the specialists, so the surgeons, the neurologists, the internists, and that sort of thing. And so they brought me on to basically do that expansion project. And so it involved negotiating the contracts with them, the sublease agreements, the operating agreements, recruiting doctors, recruiting all the technicians and receptionists, and then defining the brand for it as well, and understanding exactly how we were going to position ourselves within that market.
Man, and I have tons of questions that comes with that, but I'm curious too. So I'm sure our listeners are thinking, I know that you're not a veterinarian, but I'm sure they were probably assuming that you are. What's your background? How'd you get connected with GCVS?
So it's kind of an interesting
because
story.
does everybody probably ask you that?
Yeah, exactly. They say, "How did you find yourself in the veterinary space?"
Yeah.
I'm a chemical engineer. So I studied chemical engineering in undergrad.
I did not know that. Okay.
And worked for a pharmaceutical company for about 7 years, and worked in technology, and then moved over to the business area. And then it was a 60,000 employee organization, and I realized that I wanted to get a little bit deeper into the business side of things. So left there, went to business school full time for 2 years. And then after that, worked for a large medical device, not as large as 60,000, but it was about a $4 billion company outside of Philadelphia, and primarily human healthcare, but they also had a small veterinary division. And there was an opportunity to run the veterinary division. It was sort of almost like the black sheep of the company. It was something that
we're having problems over here. If you want to take it on, you can maybe take it on, something like that.
Exactly. And I said,
Nice.
this sounds awesome, because it was a great general management type of opportunity, and the team was great, and it was a market leader, had a great brand, and the surgeons, the veterinary surgeons around the world, were fiercely loyal to this brand. And so to me, it seemed like an incredible opportunity. And so I ran the marketing, sales, product development, and education for that particular company. It's called Synthes. That's how I got in touch with the surgeons at Gulf Coast. They were one of my biggest customers from a sales perspective, and one of the surgeons, Dr. Brian Beal, who's a board-certified surgeon at Gulf Coast, was helping advise my product development team on how to best serve the surgeons of the world through innovative product development, and was helping with clinical trials and that sort of thing. And so, his desire to expand and my desire to be a little bit more entrepreneurial and get involved with something smaller than a $4 billion company.
There's a lot out there under that radar. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what sort of incentivized me to go do it. And veterinarians are phenomenal people to work with. They're humble. They're some of the smartest people out there, and they're very passionate about what they do. And for me, Gulf Coast was a great brand. It was world renowned, and had a great reputation for patient care, and was just huge in the industry. So for me, it seemed like an awesome opportunity to really get involved with a great organization.
Man, we're talking with Ryan Buck with Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists.
A lot of times people think that veterinarians are veterinarians across the board. What sets you guys apart, one of the things, is that you have board certified veterinarians. And I don't know that everybody understands that. I know it's in your marketing material, but kind of explain that, what the difference is between just, a veterinarian. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
You need them. That's like your general guy, right, or gal, and then
but board certified
level.
is an extra level of training, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, I think the general practitioners and the family veterinarians, they have to know a little bit about everything, and I think it's incredibly, it's amazing the amount of knowledge that they need to know when they've got a client with a pet with a problem coming in. They've got to kind of reach deep into their training, which is a 4-year veterinary school training, and occasionally an internship, and that's generally where the general practitioner and their formal schooling generally stops. And what differentiates a board certified specialist is after they do, say, a 1-year rotating internship at an academic institution or a private practice, they may either go on and do a specialty internship for another year. We have a number of specialty internship programs at Gulf Coast in surgery and neurology, avian and exotics, and internal medicine. But then they'll go on and do a 3-year residency program.
Wow.
And the competition to get a residency is incredibly stiff. We're talking about, in the single-digit percentile of folks that they accept amongst the applicants to the different programs. And then after they do their 3-year residency, assuming they survive, and it's incredibly grueling, then they have to take a very rigorous board certification examination, which the pass rates can range anywhere from the low 20% to the, say, 60%, depending on the specialty. But it's a very, very difficult test that many people don't pass on their first try.
That's a lot of training to go
It's
through.
a lot of training, yeah.
Is it more than a regular physician?
I think it depends. It depends on the specialty. It depends on the program. I mean, some residencies are longer than 3 years.
Because I've heard for years that it is harder to be a veterinarian and board certified than it is to be a doctor, like a people doctor.
Like family doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
I've heard that as well. I'm not sure that it's ever been substantiated. I have heard it.
I've heard that a lot from other vets.
I've heard of people that couldn't get into medical school or couldn't get into vet school, so they became a human doctor. I've heard that story, again, anecdotally. And again, I've never seen the stats on that or the acceptance rates comparisons, but it is incredibly difficult to get into vet school. It's very, very competitive to get into residency programs. And when you're board certified, you typically become board certified in a specialty. So like I said, surgery or internal medicine or oncology or neurology or dentistry, and that's all you do. Our board certified dentist, she only does dentistry. She does root canals. She does do some cleanings. She'll do some complex jaw fractures. And but she's dealing with the jaw and teeth every day, all day.
And just so our listeners know, too, you were saying a lot of this is referred business. So they would still need to go to the regular vet, and this is GCVS is where they would go if they've been referred by their kind of general practitioner, unless maybe it's an emergency, right?
Yeah, we do not take self-referrals.
Okay.
So they have to have seen their family veterinarian, and then the family veterinarian has to recommend it as something that a specialist would need to address. Our emergencies are obviously walk-in because the family veterinarians are closed. So they would come in on nights and weekends. But then if there was a need to see a specialist, there's always a discussion with the family veterinarian. It's really important that we include them in all of our in the total care continuum for our patients.
And you guys have also developed quite a few surgeries. I know that is it the hip replacement and knee replacements are different surgeries for animals.
Some of the doctors have kind of
and written textbooks on them.
Oh, absolutely. Well, our canine arthroscopy is probably the biggest one. So Dr. Wayne Whitney, and Dr. Brian Beal, along with our partner in Austin, Dr. Don Hulse, years ago, really pioneered what is today the medical standard for canine arthroscopy, and so that was a technology that had been available only in human medicine. That they formed partnerships with some human arthroscopy companies and have really improved the outcomes for some very common procedures, like the ACL tear, which is one of the most common orthopedic conditions for dogs. We do them all arthroscopy, which is smaller incision. We think quicker healing time, lower infection rates,
absolutely,
and that sort of thing. And it was really through the persistence of Dr. Whitney, Dr. Beal, and Dr. Hulse to really take kind of the veterinary standard of care forward.
And you have neurosurgery,
right,
which Dr. Longshore is the guy heading that up. I've known Dr. Longshore for a little while, and can you imagine from the perspective of an owner of your pet, where you have something that happens on, the back or spine of your animal, and think, well, what am I going to do? There's an actual facility dedicated to that right there on 59.
Yeah, so we have MRI, CT, digital X-ray. We have dogs that come in with hind limb paralysis that end up walking out of our facility. We've done total disc replacement procedures. One of the very few facilities in the world to do that. Dr. Carly Giovanella is actually an instructor in that technique. And I'm actually going to give a little sneak peek at something that we have coming in September. Very few people know. Nat Geo Wild actually commissioned a production company to come and spend 6 weeks with us in March and April, and they filmed 6 episodes of a show that's going to be called Animal ER. So in September, you're going to see a lot of these cases, followed from the initial consult through the surgery. Very graphic images of and people that love medical shows and surgery shows. This is all access. So we've got surgical interns and neurology interns wearing GoPros, and you're going to see you're going to see right into that surgical site.
See what they see. Wow.
Absolutely. And some incredible avian and exotic cases. And so it's going to be a glimpse of veterinary medicine, I think, like has never been seen before. So we're really excited about it.
That is exciting, man. And it broke here. Man, all right.
National exposure, which I want to talk about the exposure that you get now and your marketing and how you outline everything. And we'll get into that in just a second. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with the Marketing Maverick. That's Jason Arcemont, along with our guest, Ryan Buck, right here on The Hook.
You were made to shine under southern stars.
You're listening to The Hook right here on 950 KPRC. My name is Josh, along with Jason Arcemont, and our guest in studio today from GCVS, Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialist, Ryan Buck, the CEO. And talking about marketing, we got to get into the marketing. What all you guys do? You have three locations at this point, right?
Yeah, well, we have 2 locations in Houston, but three cities. The two locally are it's all Gulf Coast.
Kind of sum it up into one,
right? Yeah. Exactly.
Man, I was just thinking last segment. Ryan was telling us about some of the folks and the doctors, and they're writing textbooks and creating science kind of on the fly with this facility, and it just kind of got me thinking. As like a business owner, I know I always struggle with like leadership and culture development. I mean, as a CEO of an organization that employs doctors, I mean, do you have any tips for how you're able to kind of keep your arms around like kind of the culture and still be a leader within that space with such, I'm sure, strong-minded employees?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, and especially in our geographic expansion. So we opened up San Antonio in 2012. And I think one of the mistakes that I made from a leadership perspective is I tried to do it all myself. I mean, I was getting in the car, driving there every week, spending days there every week, feeling that I needed to be the office manager, the tech supervisor, the doc supervisor, the head of finance, the marketing director. I had to do it all. And I think that, it wasn't until I started finding local leaders. We took on 2 local partners, which were both doctors, and that tremendously accelerated the success of the practice, because we had folks that could kind of keep an eye on things and be the ones to really lead the group on a day-to-day basis. I mean, the bottom line is you only have 24 hours in a day. You're only one person. As your organization grows, you have to find local leaders. With Austin, I didn't make that mistake. We hired an office manager and an ICU.
Like right at the beginning. I think I remember that, yeah.
An office manager, an intensive care unit, overnight emergency supervisor, a technician supervisor, and 2 local partners. And I think the growth has accelerated much more rapidly because there was eyes and ears there.
Yeah,
There were people
yeah.
that could make decisions on the fly, and I relied on them once I got there to say, what can I help you with, as opposed to I need to do some forensics on how
What's
can
been
we
going
improve
on
and
while I'm
what's been
gone?
going on.
Yeah.
I've got people that are looking out
Right.
for the best interests of the practice on a day-to-day basis, and so to me that was phenomenal. And we started out with less than 100 employees, and now we're over 200, and
Wow.
it's just not scalable to be sort of a one-man
Yeah.
leader. You have to trust. A saying that I like to use with my staff is trust breeds efficiency. You cannot be efficient without trust. Now, trust isn't an entitlement; it's something that has to be earned. But once there is trust, and you feel like you've got people working with you that do the right thing when no one's looking, then that's when you can really expand your reach, and you can be involved as someone, to be a coach, to be a problem solver, and someone that can provide support and check in on things, as opposed to someone that's making every single decision.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we've had so many people in here that talk about success and talk about things, but I mean, so often it comes down to delegation. The inability to assign tasks and, like you said, build trust and build rapport so that what you're handing off is going to get done, and you can go take care of other problems is just crucial. Josh was talking about the marketing, and I'm sure there's a whole show that we could do on the marketing that you guys do. But I was always fascinated with your marketing is twofold. Where you've got this B2B or business to business marketing, as well as kind of a B2C, with your business to consumer. I'm interested. How do you guys really handle that? How do you tackle that? And then also just throwing on top of that 3 different locations.
Sure.
I mean, that's a heck of a calendar, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean it's really challenging. I mean, our relationships with our referring vets are so very important because and that's sort of the B2B as you
Right.
describe. Our referring vets need to trust us. They need to believe that when they tell the clients, you should go to this specialist at Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists, or Austin Veterinary Emergency and Specialty Center, or Mission Veterinary Specialists in San Antonio, that you're going to have a great experience. It's going to be great medicine. It's going to be great service. It's going to be a reasonable price.
Yeah.
And
They'd
so
have to be willing to put their name on it.
Right.
I mean,
No,
it's a referral. That's tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's really, really important. Communication is super important with our referring vets. And then from a B2C perspective, emergency. So when you've got a pet and it's midnight and you just found out that they ate a bunch of chocolate, what are you
Yeah.
going to do?
Yeah.
You're going to go to the internet. You're going to go to the web. You're going to call your family veterinarian and see if they've got someone listed on their answering machine. So from an emergency service perspective, we need to be able to be available in every
right.
channel.
Yeah.
Search engine optimization, Google AdWords. Finding the right group to work with there to make sure that we can be found in the time of need is super important. I think that from a specialty perspective, the referral only business. Certainly there's some referring veterinarians that might say, well, you can go to these guys or these other guys or Gulf Coast. And so we want to be available for when they do research that they find us. And if they're given sort of not a full endorsement, but here are a group of
Right.
3, they're all good.
Yeah.
We want to be able to differentiate in those channels as well.
That's interesting. Standing out in that. And I mean, do you guys put customer service, do y'all lump that into marketing, or how do you guys handle that? Because I know some companies are like, that is marketing for us.
It's a
curious.
it's a crossover. I mean,
Okay.
we kind of define as marketing is getting clients to our hospital.
Okay.
Customer service is once they get in the hospital, taking care of them.
Yeah.
So it's sort of different people. However, it's the marketing folks that do the client service surveys and looks at them and understands, are we doing a good job? Because the thing is if as a marketer, right, you're going to go out and you're going to talk about how great this hospital is. Well, if the hospital's not doing those things, and I mean,
makes it kind of tough, doesn't it?
exactly. And so it's validation. Client service surveys are validation of the marketer's message. So if we say that we've got Our pricing is reasonable. We've got the best medicine, low wait times, whatever we're saying to folks, we want to make sure that the clients are saying those things about us, because otherwise we're disingenuous.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a great point. I think so many times people market as if what they know the customer wants to hear, but maybe they don't stop and say, now, wait a minute, let's make sure that we're actually doing that.
It's that validation step.
Yeah. No, I love that.
We made the decision that when we entered San Antonio market, we didn't enter as Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists. We entered as Mission Veterinary Specialists.
Well, that's something else I was going to ask you is about. Yeah. Okay. So you have GCVS here in Houston. Those of you in San Antonio will know Mission, and then you also have Austin. So you've got 3 different brands. Talk through a little bit how you guys came to that conclusion that you wanted to have 3 separate brands, because we get that a lot as a marketing firm, and I'd love to kind of hear your reason.
No, absolutely. I mean, they're 3 very different cities, 3 very different cultures, and they need 3 very different things from a specialty hospital and a specialty emergency hospital. And so, in San Antonio, the feedback that we got was that there was a need to have, a specialty hospital with accessible specialists, with folks that are going to take more time with clients and communicate with referring veterinarians. Our tagline there is Mission Veterinary Specialists, care you can count on.
Right.
And we're high touch specialists. That's what we do. And in Austin, that market was full of sort of a disjointed emergency and specialty competition, and we had a fully integrated solution located right in the center of Austin. Our tagline, we care, always there. And a great marketing group actually helped us come up with that.
I wonder who that was.
Full disclosure, Brightbox was there and helping with some of that creative process. But and I know we've talked through that conversation before, and I think it's really important. So many times clients want to keep pushing their primary brand or their first brand rather than saying, hey, sometimes that may actually dilute the effectiveness of it if we try to take what we're doing in Houston, that's really a Houston staple, and now we try to dilute that by saying it's also San Antonio.
Right, and we didn't want San Antonio to feel like Houston's invading San Antonio, or Austin to feel like
the step-parent thing or something. Right, exactly. I don't know if that's a good one, but it kind of feels like it's almost cheapening it. Like,
well, and the other thing
specific
is,
for us,
we wanted to give some autonomy too to the local group, and that we felt like when we entered San Antonio, we had 24 years of successful specialty hospital expertise that served as the starting point for Mission Veterinary Specialists. It has evolved. It has taken on its own culture. Austin is the same way. And we've let it. I mean, certainly, when they want to do things radically different, I mean, we talk about it. We say, well, that was tried before, and maybe we should tweak it.
Sure.
We've learned just as much from our partners that are 1 and 4 years old from them as they've learned from us, because there's smart people there that they can solve problems, and we've got to let them be creative and define the brand for what it needs to be. The San Antonio community wants certain things, the Austin community wants certain things, and while Gulf Coast is amazing here, we think for Houston, it may not be specifically exactly what is needed in Austin and San Antonio.
Well, and it's proven to not be so, because those other 2 locations are doing phenomenal, and I think they visually look and culturally really fit that community. So I love that, and that's a debate I get into, and I bring up GCVS a lot when talking to other clients all the time. So I think that's something to really listen to. We've got Ryan Buck, CEO of Gulf Coast Veterinary Specialists, in studio with us.
Hard to believe, but our time is up.
That's a whole show, man.
I know.
Well, I told you guys there's so much that we could lean on Ryan for. So, man, maybe we'll have to have you back again. I mean, I know we just scratched the surface of what you do and the experience that you have, and I know there's a wealth of experience and knowledge there for us, and our listeners would just really benefit from that. So I thank you for your time, and I'm going to have to pull on you to come back again sometime.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Jason.
You're going to revisit?
Thanks, Josh. Absolutely, I'll come back. You'll have me.
Good. We didn't run them off.
Thanks for joining us this week. It's The Hook.